Okay, we'll be starting in like a minute or two. Anybody out in the lobby want to come on in? We got seats up in front. Yeah, and then I'll just introduce you.
Oh, I'm gonna try. I'm just going to give some narrow instructions. Yeah. And I felt like how gay I say in general.
Okay, everyone. It's little 2:05, so welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you very much for coming out. My name is Pam Het with Indivisible Las Cruces, and you've probably met many of our steering committee members, so we appreciate all of the help that our committee has given. And I'd like to take just a second to, if you haven't had a chance, introduce yourself to your neighbor. When we came in this afternoon to set up, the tables were here and it was like, should we change it? Nah, I think it's gonna be good that we can have a nice community setting. So that's how we've left it. So if you wanna just say hi to your neighbor, that'd be great. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Can I have a quick show of hands on who is this their first meeting? Excellent, oh, hi, good to see you. Hey. And for those of you who are not familiar with Indivisible, it started back in 2017 as a sort of a rallying cry with the first Trump administration. And after that, and we had a chapter here in Las Cruces in 2017. After that, it sort of waned once we got down into Biden and everything like that. Well, once the November election and January 20th happened, there were about 5 of us who were at Mary Brannan's. We were playing a little poker, a little 10-cent poker there. And it was like, we got to do something. We just cannot sit with our head in the sands. And literally, we talked to the previous group that had Indivisible, and they said, yes, we support you 100% and go for it. And there's three things. Number one, we want to do whatever we can to stop the Trump agenda. And as you can see, yes. Everything within Project 2025. So that's why we're sending out, emails, contact your senator, contact your representative. We need to have this. We'll talk about postcards, whatever we can do to support Project 2025. The next big thing is just the whole oligarchy and the authoritarianism. How are we going to stop that? We've had some good protests at the Tesla charging stations. We want to do more of that. We want to support our immigration and be advocates, especially down here in southern New Mexico. That is so important. And I appreciate all who came out for our immigration protest. That was awesome. We had over 100 people on a very, very windy day. So thank you. And then the third thing is, and this is going to come closer to, August and September, we have school board elections and we have 3 city council seats up. So Indivisible, now we'll get in a little bit more of this in the future about what Indivisible can do, because we are what they call unaffiliated or unorganized. We're not a 501c4 or anything like that. So there are certain things that we can and cannot do. And we're going to be working very closely with Blue CD2, which is a national PAC, a state of New Mexico PAC. They're a 501(c), whatever, 501(c), 4C. And so we need to be careful what we do, but we will definitely support and be out there aggressively to work for our candidates. So just want to let you know sort of what the 3 tenets of what we're looking for. Okay, today we're gonna have a very special guest, and this was sort of your request of understanding what our protest rights are so that we stay legal, we stay professional, nobody wants to get into trouble, and also sort of what our other rights are as we worked with our neighbors. So we're gonna go through that, then I'll give a quick treasurer's report, talk about postcard campaign, our New Mexico state convening, and then some key dates coming up, and then we'll have a good time for question and answer. So just so you have a general idea of what we're going to be talking about. So with that, I would like to introduce our presenter, Israel Chavez. He's an attorney at law here in Cruces. Excellent. He's going to give you sort of an overview, and then we'll go through questions and answers. Thank you.
Set my things here. I printed some little Know Your Rights cards here, so I'll give those to you all at the end. I'm going to give just a short overview of kind of some limiting instructions about our little talk today, okay? So I am an attorney. I'm a New Mexico attorney. I'm licensed in the state and federal courts. I do civil rights, any type of injury, work comp, car crash, dog bite, slip and fall, and I do criminal defense. Our discussion here is going to be focused on general topics, okay? You can't ask me about your specific situation, because if you're going to ask an attorney about your specific situation, you have what's called confidentiality. We do not have confidentiality in this room for a variety of reasons. There's a computer in front of me, and there's a lot of people in here, which I love. But that means we have to talk generally. Secondly, I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. In order for me to be your attorney, we got to sign an engagement letter. There's all these things we have to do. So a lot of people like to say, I have an attorney. I'd be happy to help you, perhaps, if it's the right case for me. But you have to come down to my office, and we got to go through all those things, okay? And I have plenty of cards to hand out. I, of course, don't mind anybody ever reaching out to my office. We do a variety of free consults for certain types of cases. For other types of cases, we do have paid consultations. Those are usually limited to like civil disputes or criminal defense. I'm going to try to give you an overview of what your rights are and help everyone better understand what we can do to enforce our rights. I would argue, so I was born in 91. In 96, the Illegal Immigration Reform Act was signed, okay, by Clinton. Everything that we see that's happening today is just a result of about 35 years of bad policies being enacted and enforced over and over again. You got a lot worse after 9/11. A lot of the rights have been curtailed. But I'll also say that in TV, name a famous lawyer from TV that you can think of. Perry Mason, Matlock, Atticus Finch, what did they all do? Criminal defense lawyers. Criminal defense lawyers were the heroes of media. I heard all those names, that's why I said them all. They were the heroes because government overreach is not new. It's not unique. It is a standard practice of pretty much any government, irrespective of party. And so I also want to encourage us to think about not only what we're doing in our official sort of actions, but also how we see attorneys as a whole. I get it. You see all these lawyers on billboards who are not coming out to do this. But it is so important for us to understand that if you do not believe in the rights, all of these rights we're going to talk about for the least among us, for the most disdainful among us, for the people you hate more than anyone, the people who have committed heinous crimes against people you love, then you don't believe in these rights. And that is period, full stop. You have to believe in them for everyone or no one gets them because there's no dividing line. So I want to be really clear about that because I get some hate, representing folks who we say, why are you letting these criminals out? I'm not. I'm defending the Constitution of New Mexico and the Constitution of the United States. And we have to do that together. And we have to understand what that role is because it is getting very hard. I'm going to go into a little bit of our rights and then I want to jump into Q&A as fast as possible because I want to hear from you all. One of the things that you have to know about your rights is the state constitution only applies to state actors. Who are state actors? Police. What kind of police? State police, city police. Who else? County, sheriff. Who do they not apply to? Federal individuals, all federal actors, federal judges, federal officers, border patrol, IRS, tax and rev, yes. IRS, no. The US constitutional rights apply to those federal actors. We're at a place now where your federal constitutional rights are severely curtailed. It used to be that the 1983 lawsuit that you could sue government actors for misconduct, that has been effectively hollowed out. New Mexico passed its own 1983 equivalent. It's called the New Mexico Civil Rights Act. It allows lawyers like me to sue the government, especially, usually, unfortunately, officers for violating people's rights. It's almost impossible to do that at the federal level because you get what's called an automatic right of appeal on qualified immunity. Qualified immunity says that if I'm doing my job and I make a mistake by accident, then you can't sue me. If you have an automatic right of appeal in federal court on that issue, it's going to take you 5 years to resolve your issue. So I'm not going to take your case if all they did was throw you to the ground. We now have a New Mexico Civil Rights Act that says I have a $2 million cap on damages and no federal right of appeal. They can appeal it to the Court of Appeals all day long, state Court of Appeals, but that gave us a new tool to hold local officials accountable. Federal officials are still pretty much allowed to act with some level of impunity. Who is allowed to enforce your rights in this room? Raise your hand if you think you can enforce your rights. You can only invoke your rights. How do you invoke your rights? Well, that is one way, right? Your right to remain silent is you have to be quiet. But what if an officer says, I'm going to search your car? You cannot physically stop the officer. But what can you say? No, I do not consent to a search. There's a really funny case that was recent in front of the US Supreme Court where a person was arrested. They were being held and interrogated. He said, I want my lawyer, dog. And the US Supreme Court said, not clear enough. What if he wanted a dog lawyer? Absurd, right? Absolutely absurd. That is what they ruled. You have to be unequivocal. And the only way that you can invoke your rights is verbally. If they are breaking down your doors, you cannot stop an officer. That's just not within your rights as an individual. A lot of people want to throw this, stand your ground stuff around. It's just not going to end well for you, right? I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying it's going to end badly, right? And so the only way that you can truly invoke your rights is by invoking them verbally. The only people who can effectively, in my opinion, enforce your rights is a civil rights attorney, an attorney who represents you in that case, okay, against the government. Because it is not up to unfortunately, not up to citizens to enforce their rights in the moment. It is up to a judge and a bunch of lawyers to decide whether or not your rights were enforced, and then how do we punish someone. It is also a misnomer to call police officers law enforcement. They are not enforcing laws. They are an agent of the court and of the court system. The only people who have the right to enforce law are judges and prosecutors. But we don't think of them that way. I mean, officers will often have a saying that says, well, you can beat the rat, but you can't beat the ride. Meaning, I'm going to arrest you and I'm going to charge you, and you're going to have this on your record, your unofficial record, because it's not going to go on your rap sheet. But anytime anyone looks you up on New Mexico courts, you're going to have this on your record. That in itself, they see as a punishment because they see themselves as enforcing law. That is not the role of police officers. Police officers are only supposed to bring people to the courthouse who they suspect or have reasonable suspicion, probable cause to believe that they violated the law. We have to think about these systems in their true context. We've allowed these systems to go out of control, completely out of control. And so when you are faced with a problem, if you are on a public sidewalk, a public space, right? Accepting the federal government's going to have a different set of rules. If you're on the federal court's property, that's going to be different. They deem you a threat, the court can do whatever they want. They can tell you, beat it. I don't suggest getting into it with the courthouse. But if you're on the steps of Congress, the steps of the legislature, city hall steps, or any public city sidewalk, you have certain rights, so long as you're not hurting anyone else. You're not causing any sort of disturbance that could endanger someone's right to harm, right to be free from harm. If an officer walks up to you, I always tell people this loop, okay? This is the loop that I would do. Officer walks up to me and says, hey, I want to talk to you. Am I under arrest? No. Well, then am I free to go? No. Okay, well, am I under arrest? No. Okay, well, then am I free to go? No. I would do that 100 times before answering any other question. The moment the answer to the first question, which was what? The moment that question is yes, what do? You said it earlier. Shut up. That's all you can do. There is absolutely nothing you're going to say that's going to help you, because everything you say, it's like I'm in a choir. Everything you say can and will be used against you, not fairly, not for you, not in any way to benefit you. Everything you say will be used against you. And I mean that very deadly seriously. There is nothing that you're going to say. And they're going to try to make you feel bad. They're going to say, well, gosh, these are some serious elements. Wouldn't you like to tell me your side? I mean, if it was me, I'd want to shout that I was innocent from that moment. I'd want to tell everybody that it wasn't me. There's nothing you're going to say that's going to help you. I can assure you that. The best clients that I have walk into my room, walk into my office, were silent after they were arrested and even before. Because all you should be saying to an officer is, am I under arrest? No. Can I go then? Am I free to go? If the answer to the second question is no, then guess what? The answer to the first question is now yes. You don't need to know, you don't need to get into that with them, but you need to know that if the answer to the first question, am I under arrest, is no, am I free to leave? If that question is also no, doesn't matter what he or she answered to the first question, you are under arrest. So what should you do next? Stop talking. Exactly. It's very important, because those are the only tools you have, but they are incredibly powerful tools, and they will make you feel like, well, oof, if a jury hears that you just didn't even explain yourself, you know what they're not allowed to do? Tell a jury that you didn't want to explain yourself. It is unconstitutional. It is an automatic mistrial if they comment on your invocation of silence. You cannot bring it up. You cannot bring it up in any criminal proceeding. You cannot say, and when given the opportunity, Mr. Smith refused to defend himself, refused to say why he was innocent. That's incredibly powerful, because they will lie to you. They've lied to many clients and told them, God, it's going to look really bad that you didn't When given the chance, you didn't stand up for yourself. You didn't shout from your rooftops that you were innocent. And I understand that urge. I understand that urge. You have to resist it because that is not your constitutional right. So that's my kind of overview, and we're going to jump into questions. Remember, don't ask me questions about your specific issue. If you think that your rights have been violated, we'll talk about maybe setting a consultation. I have plenty of cards. Mr. McCamley had his hand up first, and he's real loud, so you can probably just ask him.
There was a lawyer in Michigan who was coming back from spring break in the Dominican Republic. He had represented one of the protesters in Michigan. When he was coming through the airport, the federal law enforcement was at the airport, put him in a room and said, "We're not letting you go until we go through your phone." You go through a little bit of specifics about what you are allowed to refuse or not refuse.
Oh, it's that mic over there. Turn it off. Yeah.
Second question is much more general. What we need to start worrying about, like if I'm a straight white dude who's got an American passport, from an immigration perspective, I'm probably last on the list. But as we start seeing things escalate from we're going to go after the Venezuelan gang, we're going to arrest a fucking single judge in Wisconsin.
And in New Mexico.
But the one in Wisconsin was just like, you're in there doing your job or whatever. What are some of the things that we should be watching out for as these things escalate? Would be, okay, I need to go off to you and find where.
Okay, so for the first questions about like travel and protecting yourself, so the attorney that Bill's talking about, he was able to successfully prevent his phone being searched, probably because he's a lawyer. And so I don't want to give anybody any false sense of hope that you're going to be able to stop what's happening. If you're that worried about your phone getting searched, leave your phone at home. Get a burner phone with like 3 contacts that you need to call from, I don't know, wherever you're going to go, because it's going to be very difficult. Your rights are severely curtailed when you are traveling into the United States, or if you live within 160 or whatever miles of a border or international water. You want to know how many people in the United States live within a border or international water? Like 85% of the population. So 85% of the population don't actually enjoy full constitutional rights. Just corn and Iowa basically enjoys full constitutional rights. So if you want to safeguard your phone from being searched in any event, right? How many of you unlock your phone with your face? That is not speech. And the reason that's important to understand is you can be compelled to do it. So the analogy I give to folks is DWIs. In New Mexico, we took a case all the way to the US Supreme Court that said you cannot draw people's blood. It's too invasive. They have to consent to it. You can't just force them, or you need a court order forcing them to give blood. But they can make you give breath. Why? What was that? It's not invasive because you're giving it up every day, just breathing, right? That's what the court said. And so the same is true if you're walking around with your face, can't take it off. It's not invasive to make you unlock your phone. The same is true of your thumbprint. Putting your finger on your phone is not invasive. Forcing you to put a passcode in is invasive. I changed it. My thumbs are sore from unlocking my phone every day, every 5 minutes that I look at it, but I don't have a face code on it, a face unlock. I'm concerned about my clients' confidential information on my phone. I represented some of the protesters at NMSU's campus. I'm on probably the same list as that lawyer. So I'm fully expecting to be at some point searched. And unfortunately, since I'm here talking to you, you're probably now on the list too. We're all on the list. That's just a matter of how high up, I guess, you get on it. It could be a badge of honor. Removing your face unlock or your thumbprint unlock from your phone is a good way to prevent it. And then if they say, well, I want you to open it, what do you say? I do not consent to a search, and I'm not doing that. I just want to talk to the Lord. When you're coming back in from an international border, there's a little camera now. Have you ever seen that? You can actually refuse those photos. I've done that since the beginning, just for fun. I'm just always looking for a fight, I think. They've never given me grief about it, but you can take steps to understand. If you're coming in, you can say, I'd rather not take a photo. it can be for just personal reasons. And you don't have to take a photo. You do have to give them your passport. You do have to tell them, answer basic questions when you are returning. On the interior checkpoint, the only question you're obligated to answer is whether you're a United States citizen. If they have additional probable cause, which they don't have to tell you, they do not have to explain anything to you. They can search you, detain you, do all these other things. The most important thing you can do is say, I don't consent to a search, and be quiet. You don't say anything else. If you're a US citizen, you can say I'm a US citizen. That's pretty much it. Does that kind of capture the question that you had? The more general scary question that he had, which is like, what should we be looking out for? I mean, I want to really instill in everyone that this is not new. President Obama, who was the first election I could vote in, killed US citizens without due process. That is actually far worse than what this administration is doing. They're getting some semblance of a little bit of due process, maybe skirting that a little bit. They're not murdering anyone without due process. So let's be clear about what we've given up over the past 3 decades to get to this point. And we need to be more clear with our elected officials what we want back. That means, right, everyone else on the planet is just hoping that we will get our act together. And we're the only ones on the planet that can have a direct line to our members of Congress and to our senators. But it doesn't stop at that level. We can also call committee chairs and majority offices, because Chuck Schumer has his New York office and then he has his leadership office. We need to be advocating at every level to restore the constitutional rights that we've eroded over the last half century. Because this isn't new. He's not doing anything that isn't within much of what he's doing is within the bounds of the executive branch. We've allowed that. Our members of Congress have stripped the powers of the legislative branch and the judiciary. Prior to the Immigration Enforcement Act that Clinton signed, judges had way more discretion. They didn't have to automatically detain. We got here on a clear path. We marched straight here, and there were probably folks in this room who at that time said, hey, this is not good. What do we pay attention to? I mean, any interaction with law enforcement, you should just be very, very cautious. If you have a gut feeling that somebody is in the room and they probably shouldn't be, there may very well be a federal officer in this room right now, right? I mean, you need to be aware of yourself. I can't pinpoint one thing because we have to be watching it all. Criticism of the judiciary right now. I mean, I'm very critical of anyone pretty much. But right now, I think we need to just reel in our judicial criticism for a moment and understand that like that job is very hard. Nothing you're seeing on the news is, in my opinion, what it seems to be. And it is very intentional to plant the seeds of doubt in the black robes that sit as the head of a courtroom. Judges are not perfect, but in this moment, the first thing that they're going to do is try to make us all believe that the judges are corrupt or that they're harboring fugitives, no matter how untrue those allegations can be. And they're going to make a spectacle to convince folks. So we have to be voicing that opposition to say that no, these 90-year-old Reagan appointees are probably going to save us, unfortunately. Yes.
When we attend protests and we carry signs, are there any rules regarding what our signs can say and what they can't?
I would generally stay away from like threats to like violent threats to anybody. But there's a really famous case of a guy who walked into a courthouse with the F word on the back of his jacket. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was like, no, you cannot. It doesn't matter if you don't like the profanity. I mean, it's that bad. We should probably be using profanity. And if profanity is offending your sensibilities, I got a lot of things I can share with you about what's happening in the federal government right now. So no, I mean, just don't threaten violence, right? Don't threaten to overthrow the government. Focus on what we can change, what we want done, civil liberties, strengthening of a democracy, support of our judiciary. I would stick to that. But if you want to say fuck, just do it. Church. I forgot this is church. I apologize. Yeah, and we got someone in the back, but it looks like we got someone here first. So he's got a mic, so he's gonna. I'll get you next.
I'm Joyce. And I was wondering, at what point do you ask for a lawyer to stop the police from bothering you?
If the police are bothering you, you should ask for a lawyer.
Will that stop them
Immediately.
from bothering you or not?
Probably not, but those are the only words you should be saying to an officer is that loop of a questioning. The moment you're under arrest or you do not feel free to leave, you should just be asking for a lawyer. Like if you're being spoken to by a police officer, you know they're a police officer, and you're like, am I under arrest? No. Am I free to go? No. Then I want a lawyer. That's it, right? That's how that should go. And then you should not be saying anything else.
My name is Katya. I have a question. We hear a lot about with ICE, they have to have a judicial warrant and not a administrative warrant. But how can one know the difference, and how do I explain to teenagers or immigrants, how do I explain to them to be able to understand the difference?
So, and this is an area that I mostly have just read about. I don't have direct experience on ICE warrants because I don't do immigration law. What I understand to be the distinction is one's going to be signed by a judge, the other one is not. So even state police can issue an administrative warrant. It's really just a request. They call them warrants. They're not, excuse me, they're not real. They just are like an agency will only produce documents if state police issues an official request, and they need that just for paperwork, right? The same as I understand, the same is true for ICE. One's going to have a judge's signature, and it's going to be really clear. It'll say judge. It'll say judge, and then it'll be signed above, or it'll say judge, honorable, or something. There will be some distinguishing signature line where a judge is going to sign because the judges are busy and they want to know where to sign to. So it's going to be somewhat clear. What's that? Perhaps they may look different. I mean, you could probably Google what they look like. It's going to be somewhat rare that folks in this room are going to be dealing with ICE warrants. Ultimately, if somebody has a warrant, they're coming in. They're not going to be like trying to negotiate with you. If they have a real warrant, if they have an administrative warrant, they know that breaking the door down is not going to be legal, so they're not going to do it. So you're going to kind of know. They're going to be very clear about if they have a judicial warrant, they're probably going to be pretty clear about it. If they don't, then they're not going to be clear, and that's another way you might be able to distinguish. Again, you know, I don't have a good lens on those types of warrants, but that's as I understand it.
Does anyone else have
Yes.
a question on ICE on this topic?
Hi, Israel, I'm Kim, and thank you for being with us when we went to the pro-Palestine march. I saw you there. I just recently saw that Pam Bondi has apparently given ICE authority to enter without a warrant. Is this something that's real, or is it just something that she's tweeting?
Yeah, someone asked me about that on Friday. So I have not had an opportunity to read what the AG issued. My understanding generally is that the AG can't change constitutional law through a memo. So they're going to say that their actions are legal, right? That's what every administration says. What Obama said about his unconstitutional actions, what Bush said about his, they're always going to say that what we're doing is legal. The test is before a judge. They're welcome to test whether or not Pam Bondi's memo allows them to violate the Constitution. I mean, but if you don't enforce it, if you say, oh, okay, yeah, I read that Pam Bondi said they could do this, and so I guess you can. If you're not stating your objection, you've consented. You've consented to the search. You've consented to the entrance. You've consented to speak. So they're going to say whatever they want as long as people understand how to invoke their rights verbally. It really doesn't matter. And if they're going to enter the house, they're going to enter that. The feds are breaking down. I mean, I've had people call me over the weekend. They're like, the feds are raiding my house. I'm not Batman. I'm not showing up to stop them. We'll talk about it on Monday in front of a courthouse, in front of a courtroom. So understanding how to invoke your rights is really still the most important baseline of that. Pam Bondi and Trump and all of these people are going to continue to say that their actions don't violate the Constitution. I don't think they've ever read it, so I would venture to say don't trust what they're saying.
Maybe a follow-up. In your estimation, is Project 2025 an agenda for ethnic cleansing?
I never read it, Project 2025. I just take people's word for it who did read it that it's horrific. I just have too many other things to do. So, I mean, I think we need to be aware of like suspicious activities. But do I think that the United States is going to ethnically cleanse again because they have before? Maybe. Like, let's remind ourselves that we're not copying the Nazis. The Nazis copied us. And so we're just doing what we've done repeatedly to Japanese people, to Mexican braceros, of whom my grandfather was one, right? These mass deportations of US citizens happened like not that long ago in some of your lifetimes. So I want to focus on that the United States does this every about 100 years. Whatever they call it, we still got to be aware of it and watch it.
A bit of a follow-on, more specific. How much, again, in your estimation, do we need to worry about our friends and neighbors who are legal citizens, but maybe not birthright citizens, given the erosion of laws and norms that govern this sort of thing that they're breaking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried, but I feel like the administration is sort of biting around the edges right now to see where the weak point is, right? To find out where they can like weasel in something like that. They're focused on people who, because we've allowed these laws to be passed, can be legally treated this way. But I would be worried, and I think, you know, one of the best ways we keep our community safe is not by more patrols. It's going to be by going to your neighborhood association, knowing your neighbors, getting to know them, you know, getting together, barbecues, parties, be with one another, because that's how you keep a community safe. It's not going to be, you know, boys with guns on their hip.
Hi, my name is Selena, and I have a question about the border and crossing the border by land via car, because we do it pretty frequently. Either an American plated car or a Mexican plated car. Do we have rights if we get pulled over for like secondary inspection on the US side?
Not really.
No, so they can just go through our car.
Kind of.
In Mexico they can.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, you are by traveling abroad, you are now subjecting yourself to a search. You don't have to consent, but they're going to search. Okay. The level of search depends on their reasonable suspicion, probable cause. But I mean, if you're like, right now is not the time to be chancing things, right? Don't bring back tomatoes. Don't like, yeah. I mean, because that to me is sort of a luxury visit, and so in that context, you're going to probably be searched. It is pretty lawful. I mean, the standard is really low along the border to search somebody. You don't have to say anything, but you pretty much do have to, as I understand it, consent to a search of your vehicle if they have deemed whatever in their mind is enough to send you to a secondary. And it's unlikely that you're going to get hurt in that secondary, so it's unlikely that I'm going to sue for it, right? Even if your secondary search, your additional searches are unlawful, I don't have time for it. I mean, I have people who are like literally raped and murdered by police officers in this county. I'm not going to have time for it. So don't stress about it, because that's such a low bar. You don't have to like make yourself vulnerable in the sense that you have to over consent or over comply. But border crossing is pretty much, yeah.
Any other questions on the border or a new topic?
Yeah, we got a few more minutes and then we'll. Mr. Chavez said he'd stay around and answer.
Order. Did you have a question about the border?
I got a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I was wondering, is there a point at which we will have to get permits for protesting? What the law is in New Mexico about that?
I don't know what the law is in New Mexico. You do have to comply with whatever municipality you're in. So if you want to be at a park and they want you to have a permit, you have to get a permit. As it stands, you know, if you're all on a sidewalk and you're not blocking traffic, probably not, but you know, the city gets to decide. And who runs the city? City council, right? So we run the city, our elected representatives. So if we don't like that over restriction, then we need to be voicing that to our city council. I don't know the answer to that, but you could probably call the city manager's office.
I do, and I can address that when you're finished.
And it's also different, right? If you're in city limits, out city limits, if you're in Carlsbad, and if you're in Las Cruces, Socorro, I mean, it's all different. You can't start a fire in Espanola. I know that. Like in your backyard, you can't even have a little campfire. So everything is different in every municipality. Yeah. Oh, there's the wind. It's the wind. Go ahead.
On the topic of protesting, you did mention earlier the MSU students who were demonstrating, and so on that topic is what is the way that you can protect yourself the most when protesting with civil disobedience?
Sorry, restate the question for me.
How can we best protect ourselves protesting when we're protesting by civil disobedience?
So if you're intending on not, it's going to be very context dependent, right? So the laws on NMSU's campus are going to be different than the laws at a park. If you're intending to be civilly disobedient, and I take that to mean like if an officer tells you to leave and you don't, and they have to drag you out, they're going to charge you with resisting, which is a full misdemeanor in New Mexico. Often I will have my clients set out their hands and I will flick their hand. That's a battery in New Mexico. That's 90 days up to 90 days in jail. If you live with the person or you have had a past romantic relation with that person, that's a battery in a household member. That's up to a year in jail. A full misdemeanor is up to a year in jail. Very rare that anybody gets a full year in jail, but resisting is a full misdemeanor, so it's up to a year in jail. And the standard is very, very low. The current culture is not to dismiss those because the witness is always going to be willing to testify against you, which is the officer. So you just have to be prepared for whatever consequences they leverage. That isn't to predict or say that you would be convicted or that you wouldn't, that I couldn't beat it if you hired me. But you have to understand that that's a likely outcome if you decide not to comply with a lawful order from an officer who says you're blocking traffic, you're causing a disturbance, you're health, safety, and welfare of the community. You got to go. You don't. They drag you. That's resisting, obstructing, right? So you're going to get a misdemeanor probably. If you flail at all, if you move your arms unintentionally and it accidentally hits his shoulder, you will be charged with battery on a peace officer, which is an additional misdemeanor or felony depending on the context. And so I've had people who are like literally being drug out and and their arm whether intentionally or not, smacks an officer, they get charged with battery on a peace officer. If you square off on a peace officer, what's that called? Assault on a police officer. If they think you're about to hit them, that's assault, which is left to whose discretion. So just be aware, right? It's important that you're aware of what, if you can avoid conflict with an officer, I would suggest it. Most of the folks in here are white, so you're probably going to avoid it. And if you can be an important spectator to somebody else's rights being severely violated, right? Pull out your phone, record the hell out of them, and be quiet. They want you to move out of the way, and it's reasonable. They're saying, look, you're blocking traffic, move out of the way. Accomplish your goal without endangering anybody else. The vast majority of officers are not here to arrest you. Somebody told them to go out there and tell you guys to get out of the street. Generally, I've yet to hear of anybody getting, told you can't stand here and they could stand there. I haven't heard that yet, but it does happen in other places.
All right, we're gonna take one final question and then Chavez will be here to answer any others, and he's got some material he can pass out for you.
While he's walking over there, I want to stress that none of this is a guarantee. Every situation is very, very different. My profession is very annoying because I have to constantly preface and caveat. So I want to stress to you that like, if you have a question about a particular situation, you're welcome to call my office and we'll try to set up a time, depending on what it is. Good.
Hey, I'm Lucy, and I'm simply because of your expertise in law. I'm just wondering, do you have any angle or thoughts about how to get those guys out of jail, Venezuelans that were sent?
I mean, when back.
Is there a judge or anybody that we can force something to happen and get them back?
Great question, because it leads me to another thing, that you should not be trying to get judges to do anything. You should leave the judges alone as much as possible, because that is a different crime. And look, the judges just want less heat, right? And they're getting a lot of heat right now. They're getting death threats. I mean, I heard of a federal judge who's getting pizzas delivered to her personal home from her adult son's name to indicate that they know not only her address, but the son's name, right? The heat is high. There's not much you can do in this context with the judiciary. What we have to do is win back the majority in one of the chambers, right? At minimum. We have to continue to engage at every point that we can with every aspect of leadership in the Congress. Right now, in this particular moment, I think we should kind of leave the judiciary to its work, support them. If somebody's out there going, oh, all these corrupt judges, you should be saying, hey, it's not okay for you to say that. By and large, judges I find them to be, by and large, right? Not all of them, but mostly honorable, good people who want the best for our country. Even the ones that he appointed, right? Like some of them are like, ooh, this is a little too far. Don't really mess with the judiciary. Focus on the legislative branch, focus on the executive branch, call whatever constituent services line you can find for every branch of government, except the judiciary. They're not a constituent branch, in my opinion. But that's yours.
Well, that was a ton of information, so thank you very much. He'll be passing some information around, so you'll have that. The next, there you go, sorry. No problem. The next thing I wanted to cover real quickly is the treasurer's report. And Teresa Valenzuela is our treasurer, but she was unable to be here today. So I'll just give you a little bit of information. We right now have our balance of TrueLink, which is our ActBlue account. We have $3,422.23. So thank you very much for all your contributions. We have some recurring deposits, $50, $100. We appreciate those recurring deposits. Those are great. We have about $100 in our petty cash balance is about $100. We're keeping about $274 on balance. So if there's anything we've got to go out and get, poster making supplies or anything like that, we have it. So basically we have about $3,577 on hand. So we appreciate all your donations. And you'll see that we've got the QR codes. If you want to snap those and be able to make a donation, that would be great. We've got the donation can outside, and we want to start building that up so that if we do need to find a different location, or as we do more events, we'll be able to purchase things that we need. So thank you. Yes, the QR code is ActBlue. Okay, postcards. Kathy, do you want to talk about postcard campaign?
Hello, everyone. I would like to first of all make a confession. What I thought I was going to talk about postcards today, I will, but the campaign that I was going to talk about won't happen until spring. In the meantime, there are other postcard projects, and we're interested in who's interested in that. So there's a company called Signs of Justice. They are a sign-making company. They are US owned, they are minority owned, and they are family run. They, at the beginning of the new regime, they chose to try to put out a postcard that we could send to our senators and our representative on the first of each month to kind of remind them that we want some particular things as a majority. And they include 86% of our population supports universal background checks for gun sales. 74% support trans rights protections. 70% support safe and legal abortion, and 70% support paths to citizenship for dreamers, essential workers, and others. So they also listed their sources as McCourtney Institute for Democracy, Data for Progress, Gallup polls, and AP polls. So they put that on the postcard. So if any of you are interested, we'll talk to you about that after the meeting. I would like to give you a few statistics. They started this right after President Bush, never mind, I wish. President Trump took his seat. And their first wave of postcards went out. There were 62,000 postcards sent. They started out with the goal of 100,000 postcards. About 60 days ago, they went over 500,000 postcards. So the new goal is simply to do 1 million. And that would be that every month your senators and your reps would get a very bright postcard that tells them what we expect them to focus on for us. So anyway, one of the other statistics was about 90% of congressional staff say personalized mail can influence lawmakers if the volume is high enough. So if any of you are interested, we are going to talk about the possibility of having postcards ready to go June 1st. And that's basically it.
Excellent, thank you. By a show of hands, because we can order these postcards, let's see, 300 of them are about $65. And I know that Blue CD2 coming closer to the election are going to be doing postcards. Can I have a show of hands of who would be interested in a postcard writing party? Holy cow, that's awesome. Well, then I think we'll get more than 300. And that's what our funds are for. So that $3,500 is what we can do to put together a postcard campaign. So now that we know that you're very enthusiastic about it, we'll start to put together some possible dates. First Christian has been extremely open in giving us rooms, the lobby area, other rooms. So we will put something together sometime in May so that we can get those out for June. How's that? Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Okay. The next thing on the list real quick is the New Mexico State Convening. Now, what that is Indivisible National is trying to protect those states that have a blue trifecta, Democratic governor and legislature, House and Senate. They're asking those blue trifecta states to get together. And I was at the first Zoom meeting on Friday. There's over 20 indivisibles in the state of New Mexico, from up in the Albuquerque, Farmington area, Cloudcroft, those small rural ones. And we're all going to be trying to get together in Albuquerque, either the first or second weekend in September. And so they're asking me to send out sort of a request for interest. So that if you're interested, then we will know that we're going to get, out of the 500 people that are on our mailing list, 100 of us want to go up to Albuquerque. So that when we start planning this, we'll get the venue that's big enough. They're thinking of like Friday night would be a dinner, a reception. Saturday, they want to do some key issues. So you could go to some workshops on, the healthcare crisis in the state of New Mexico, water conservation, some of the other projects that we need to work on. And then for those of us who are in sort of a leadership steering committee, They're gonna have a track to help us engage in, increase our representation in the community. How can we get more people involved and things like that? So I just wanted to let you know that when you see that email coming, if you're interested, just say, yes, I'm interested. And it's a Google form that will go back up to the steering committee out in Albuquerque, but we'd really like to gauge your interest. There was some talk about doing it in a hybrid. Some people could go up to New Mexico, to Albuquerque, but we could do it by Zoom, for those that can't do it. So we're really trying to think of all the different options, but when you see that email, I wanted you to gauge, the opportunity. Does that make sense? Anybody interested in going? Oh, cool, that'd be great. We could have a good convoy. And if anybody's interested in, I'm on the steering committee to represent Las Cruces. If anybody's interested in, working with me or anything like that, I'm open to volunteers and, being able to help with it. Okay, thank you. Mary, did you want to make a comment on your public school? Yes, she did an amazing job.
Yeah, I want to talk back here. Hey guys, I'll stop in the middle of the room, just like a classroom. All right, guys. Everybody in the back, be nice. Don't stop hitting him. Okay. Listen, if you got to participate in the public school board meeting that we had, I don't even know what the date was, guys. My brain is getting fried here. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Many people showed up. If you didn't get to, you wouldn't have had a seat if you did show up too late because it was standing room only. All we did was present an idea that we were there for the school board, for the staff, for the faculty, for the students, the teachers, everybody. Public school's under attack and we know it. We know a little bit about the county and what's being planned for the next election, which is in November. We do not know specifically who's going to be throwing their hat in the ring to run for school board or city council, at that matter, or even certain state legislatures, I think. But that doesn't happen until August where they actually apply. So we've got a few months to prepare for what we want to make sure our school district. Oh God. We cannot let the far right take our school district. We cannot let Project 2025 succeed, and they're trying. They are trying. So that's the one thing that I want to bring up, and I want to thank you. If you're interested in adding your name to a specific email grouping, I've got a table outside called the Public School Support Team, PSTT. Okay. Come and make sure you get your name on my specific mailing list. We have another board meeting coming up here in May, and I'm planning on having another similar situation. Trying to get a headwind on what kind of topics will be brought up during open forum, which if you're interested and you've got a story, you've got a couple of minutes that you can speak to the public school board about your issue, about your wishes, about your wants. We had 7, 8 people speak, and everything that was spoken about was positive, was directional for what we want as a community. There were a few detractors at the end that got a little upset because I think we took their thunder. Okay. Okay, I'll just say it like that. Yes, okay, thank you, yes. Yes, we succeeded in what I'd hoped we'd done. I've also been asked, several people at the back of the room have said, just to remind some folks, May 1st is coming up pretty quick. There happens to be a rally, protest, whatever you want to call it, at the corner of Main and Picacho, and it's on a Thursday. So it's not going to be at noon when half the people are, busy doing something else, working or what have you. We've got it scheduled from 6 to 7:30. At that location. Again, bring your posters. Now it's May Day, and if you're familiar nautically or you've ever flown a plane, if you know the navigational concept of Mayday, Mayday, This vessel is in distress. And May Day is also a union recognition day for workers. There you go. So that's what May Day is about. Let's see if I can put my glasses. May Day, please join us. I do know that there's going to be a few people there earlier than 6, so not to worry. If you get there a little early, you'll see me floating around between 4 or 5, something like that. And my next school board meeting, or our next school board meeting, is May 20th. And I will be sending out, not just to the people that sign up to be part of our school district support team, but I tend to send it to everybody, okay? And we put it out on Facebook, we put it out on Blue Sky. Communicating with people, communicating with this community that wants to make, well, we want to keep our school district headed in the direction it's in. There's going to be enough difficulty. And I want to say one other thing. School educate. It's the weather, guys. No, that's fine. Mine went off too a while ago. May 15th, we have among our beloved people that work with us hand in hand is Bill McCamey. And he has collected a very prestigious type group of panelists that are going to be presenting here in this room at 6 o'clock on May the 5th, I believe it is, correct? 15th, I am off, guys, okay. May 15th, 6 o'clock, the panelists are going to be addressing the issues of what God's name is going to happen to us if we lose the Department of Education. What are the real ramifications at that federal level if they succeed in taking away the Department of Education? And I want to make sure, Bill, that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that it's very, very well attended.
What about May 15th, 6 o'clock here? We'll have a panel right up there on the stage of 3 excellent, smart, experienced individuals. We got 2 people coming to talk about the K-12 area and a representative, retired person from NSU, talk about what it's going to be for students. All current financial aid for higher education goes to the Department of Education. Accreditation goes to the Department of Education. And all the stuff at the K-12 level. So if you really want to know what the nuts and bolts of that are going to be, please come here, May 15th, 6 o'clock, and they're really good, but also if you know some things, you want to have you be there too. So thank you.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay, so that's Mary. Right?
Excellent, excellent, very good. Those were some key dates, and what I just wanted to get some of the thoughts on, what do we want to do for summer, okay? One of the thoughts was, do we want to go down to just 1 meeting a month, whether it's in person or by Zoom? And then we'll keep the 3rd Thursday as our educational events. Anybody have any particular thoughts on that? Okay, well, I sort of said 2 things. One is, do you want 1 meeting a month? Okay, then of that meeting, do you want it to be here in person or do you want it in Zoom? Well, I'm doing Zoom now, but I mean, do you want it to be in person once a month? Okay, that's.
Trying to save the damn country, we can't spend 2 nights a month?
I'm offering. I don't disagree with you, but I want to make sure that everybody gets the option to decide what they want to do, because people will be going out of town.
Should we have a vote? Official or unofficial? I mean, I kind of lean towards keeping it up twice a week because we need to land and we need that for community, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, no, and that's why I'm bringing it to the group, so that we're not making a unilateral decision. Okay. Raise hands on who wants to keep it twice a month. Wow, okay. Then I guess it stays at twice a month. Okay, no, I'm fine with that. We wanted to get your consensus and what you thought. That's why it's a democracy, and I wanted to know what what the thought was. So we're gonna keep it as the second and fourth Sunday here. We'll still continue to Zoom it so that I can post the Zoom on the Facebook. What, Mary? Okay, yeah, right. I mean, for those who need to go out of town, absolutely, no problem. You had a question? Oh, yeah. Right, on the questions, yes. Okay, so we've decided that we're still gonna keep it on the second and fourth Sundays here during the summer and continue to meet and coalesce and get our coalition together, correct? Okay, that's settled. Now, regarding your question, right now, we have to stay on the sidewalks, okay? We don't have a park permit. I was on an Indivisible meeting, June 14th is Flag Day. That is also somebody's birthday who wants to have his own little military parade. And it's also a Saturday. Indivisible is going to make that June 14th day our next big, huge rally. So save the date. Yes. It does not preclude us from doing any other, if we got an immigration protest, if we want to do something with Tesla, blah, blah, blah. That's what we're going to do. Now that I know what the date is, and we've got your support, we're going to talk about getting a permit in Albert Johnson Park so that we can have that. They want a 2-week notice. Then I have to get that into Indivisible, who's got to give me the certificate of insurance because they need $1 million policy. And then we've got to get that done. So now that I know you want to do it, we can back that up. Also, I can get the permit. We can talk about getting speakers. We can talk about maybe getting some food trucks. We can talk about making it a celebration and a really good rally. And I've got a couple people who I'm already got some meetings set up with to start to do that so we could make this a big event. Does that sound okay? Okay. I'm so grateful they gave us a little bit of notice because literally these things were coming like every week and they wanted a request. Yeah, you have a question? You need the mic, please.
Do you have any idea how often 5051 is going to plan these rallies? They're coming fast and furious.
No, unfortunately, I do not. I see it exactly when you see it and it's published. They're an online group. That's how they started, online only. So they don't have the representation like we do as a physical location with Indivisible. So they just start doing these things. And that's why I've said, if we can support them and we will give you the information, and if you want to show up, awesome. If it doesn't work, that's okay too. But the things we as Indivisible Las Cruces are going to support are things that come down from the Indivisible National. And if there's something local, like we did the immigration, and we can put that together, we're more than willing to do that. We want to be out there all the time. And if we got to do some more Tesla ones, because we haven't been to the charging stations in a long time. I know it's working. Okay, we're going to open this up now for some Q&A. I've tried to go through most of the regular stuff. Got some questions?
Yes. I believe that all of us attending the meeting here today are members of, first of all, members of Indivisible. And I also believe we were all dedicated to fighting the Trump 2025 agenda. Okay. Now, I watch Rachel Meadows. I watch Lawrence in the evening, and they do a very good job of informing the viewers of all the ridiculous activity that Trump and his crowd are pushing now. My question is Indivisible National publishing any printed material that they're providing to the general public. And the reason I ask this question is because in my subdivision, okay, I know pretty much all the neighbors in my subdivision. But I swear I can walk down the sidewalk and I can knock on 3 doors. And when they answer the door, I ask, what do you think about these tariffs? Or what do you think about the deporting of immigrants without due process?
Mhm.
And they'll look at me and they'll say, what are you talking about? Okay, so all of us, I'm sure, are very attentive to what is going on with the Trump crowd, okay? But my concern is that there's a lot of people out there that they don't keep up with the news, and they don't keep up with what the Trump and his crowd are doing.
Right. And yes, to answer your question, they have just started what they're calling the Truth Brigade. And that is a campaign that they're going to be trying to get out and counter misinformation and get more information out. They're starting on digital platforms. It's divided into 2 groups. One is called the guides, where they're actually writing this information up so that you can hand that to your neighbor and start to counter some of this disinformation. And they're doing it what they call amplifiers, and I'm on one of the Slack channels regarding that, so that then we can take that information and disseminate it off of the digital platforms like Facebook and Blue Sky. They will then take that into printed material so that we can counter that with that disinformation. So yes, it's unfortunately so much is happening so fast and furious, it's hard to do that. But yes, they are putting in a very targeted campaign to counter the disinformation. And I will be sharing that as soon as I get more stuff for it. You had a question?
I'm Gil Sort. Okay, there it is. I'm Gil Sort, and I would like to know if anybody here, perhaps their attorney, knows any new information about Judge Cano and the case with the immigrants, and then ask, maybe there's an opportunity to protest there.
Do you know anything about that?
Test.
You may be too close. Oh, it was muted. Okay.
Test, okay, there you go. The situation is very complicated. My understanding is that the individuals in question had non-removal orders. I probably don't, these are all federal cases, so I probably wouldn't suggest a protest on the federal court property. It's gonna stress the court out. So what I would suggest is maybe, if you're gonna protest anyone, it'd be the DOJ or the executive branch, but not necessarily at the courthouse or on the courthouse property, because those are all marshals and it gets real complicated, so.
What can you tell us about the case?
The two people have been charged. I think that the charges, that the publicly revealed charges, are tampering with evidence. That's really all I know. That it doesn't appear that anything related to those people being in their property, that was never a crime. They didn't make any charge or allegation based upon those people being there. The charges are related to something else. The something else is something else they allegedly did, but it has nothing to do with whether or not those people were in their property. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, maybe we'll go table by table down the way.
Mine is not a question as much as, I just wanted to say that currently a lot of the mainstream media is really, they're getting the screws turned on them to be supportive of Trump. And so I think we need to realize there are other avenues to get good information, particularly like the Midas Touch Network. They're outstanding. The Legal AF Network, was outstanding. Michael Popak, Ben Meiselas, they have a lot of great people, a lot of good legal minds on their program. So if you want to know what's happening, you know, in almost in real time, they are fast response to what's going on. So I just encourage people to don't feel that you're constrained to the regular stuff on television. Go to YouTube. You can find a lot of these things on YouTube and really good stuff.
Okay, maybe we can do a post of some of those with the links for Midas Touch and stuff like that.
Let's keep this short.
Jim Brooks, advocate for separation of church and state. We had a win this week. The Diana County Commission rejected a National Day of Prayer resolution. Some other things that happened this week. We will be holding a day of reason rally at City Hall, May 1st, noon. It's important for you to be there because some school board members will be there. And they will want to know you, and they will want to know that you have their back. Also, Dan Barker will be there virtually. Dan Barker is the head of a national organization called Freedom from Religion Foundation. They're the ones that Ronald Reagan does the commercials for on MSNBC. He will be joining us by Facebook. So, and plus Carrie Hamlin, Becky Coran will be with us as well. There will be some other speakers. And it's a chance for you to tell the commission, county commission, the school board, and the city council that you have their back as far as separation of church and state goes. Thank you very much.
Excellent, definitely. Mark that on your calendars.
I have a real quick question for Israel. You mentioned filming whatever we think is wrong. Is there an appropriate time to do that? And can they take our phones away if we're filming something we think is wrong?
It's going to be really context dependent on, you know, there's no prohibition on filming an officer. You just cannot get in the middle of things. You can't get in the way. So as long as you're staying out of the way, they say back up. Okay, back up a foot. Okay, back up another foot. I mean, they're going to not make it easy. They should not be taking your phone. That would be an unlawful seizure unless they believe that you captured something that would be valuable to their investigation. They would still need to get a warrant to take your phone unless you give it to them. So just be mindful of how you're interacting if you are filming. If that helps.
Oh, stay up there if you will. My name is Bill, and I brought this question up with you before, but so if we see, you know, I always go worst case scenario, right? Black van shows up, bunch of people jump out with their faces covered. There's no obvious badge or federal agency attached to them. And if we interrupt that, right? I'm safe, but you know, younger people show up, maybe they start driving them. Are we allowed to defend? Are you allowed to make a citizen's arrest as it were? I don't think
Citizen's arrest doesn't exist. So I guess in theory, if you see a bunch of people jump out of a van and they are not clearly police officers, you should probably call the police. And you should record it and you should try to get their plate, but the plate is probably going to have a big blue G on the front. Of the plate, and so it's probably going to be a government van. But if you think that someone's being kidnapped in any context, right, you should call the police and try to gather as much information: license plate, make and model, color, any distinguishing features, how tall they were they taller than the person? So just gather as much as you can about the situation. It's hard. I mean, I'm kind of afraid that I'm going to get like abducted. Who am I going to call? Right? But my hope would be that everyone around would like document what was happening and then say like, this doesn't seem right. So that's my suggestion.
You said that you're funding through Act Blue?
Yes,
Isn't that an agency that Trump is trying to stop?
yes, that is unfortunately the agency that he is attacking. They've got their legal teams on it. Right now, we're good, and we're gonna keep using them until we are told by Indivisible National to switch to something, but Indivisible National on a different Zoom call had mentioned that this could be coming up, and so they've already been talking to their attorneys and how they're gonna handle that.
I wanted to mention first off, your postcard campaign. Now, are you going to supply the cards and the stamps, or do we supply the stamps or whatever? And then I want to mention, I have done things with CD2, and they provided beautiful cards. We supplied the stamps, and as it was a donation, but also the success that we had on both terms for Gabe's elections were phenomenal. We got a lot of response from the cards that we sent. They were able to track every card. So that's a great campaign from somebody who's well.
Okay, no, that's excellent. Definitely, we will be purchasing the postcards, and we'll have to see about doing the stamps. And maybe we get some stamps for those who may not be able to, afford it. And then others, we might be able to just ask for donations for the stamp. So we'll figure that out. But now that I know you want to do this, we're going to go full steam ahead.
Hi, Lucy again. In reference to the gentleman who's disappointed in neighbors not knowing anything about what's going on, seems to me at one of our first meetings, if not the very first meeting, we talked about maybe getting a booth at some, like a booth for us at, for example, the market on Saturdays, in order to disseminate information about us and what's going on. And now that we have a little money in the kitty, maybe we could do that once a month downtown or something, or with festivals coming up.
The market is a little bit tricky from an organizational standpoint. For those who were here for the last, when we had it outside, I kept one of those white tents with the idea that maybe there would be some opportunity that we could set up a table outside. I just know that the market as its own business is a little bit difficult to try to get into and do that.
We actually checked their website, they do not allow.
Yeah, I thought so, but thank you for confirming. But there's other festivals that we might be able to, something going on in Young Park. We could put a table out there. So just so you know, I did save that canopy for those type of events.
My name is Dolores. I just had a question. A couple of weeks ago on I guess on Indivisible, I saw Melanie Stansberry at the Social Security office in Albuquerque, and all the problems, with people getting in and not being able to get in. Are we having any, I don't know about here, are we having any problems here with the office? Has anybody gone over there?
Do you want to answer that? I haven't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, or you want to come up here?
Okay.
Please.
About 2 weeks ago, I went to the local Social Security office with my son who's applying for disability. We got there early, we waited about an hour. Then the staff person came out and told us that only people who had appointments were going to come in and they were going to wait an hour. And for the rest of us, we had the option of calling or signing up online. So fortunately, he was able to call, leave a message and get a call back. So it wasn't too bad. But the people in front of us had come all the way from Silver City because Las Cruces is the closest Social Security office to them. So yeah, it's a problem.
Yes, unfortunately, that's a problem. I mean, maybe what we wanna do is do some type of a sign thing in front of the social security office. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you were talking about possible venues where we might have a booth or something. The state fair will be coming up. And I have a booth at the state fair. It's actually under the auspices of 4-H. And so I can't do it under that. But we could get a thing, because I was also at the fair in Deming. And at the Deming fair, they had all kinds of political groups, because there were ones that were opposing the Membris National Monument thing, and mainly ranchers, but there were different political things there. So my guess is that would be a good venue for the state fair.
I'm open. You got my email, or you can, Facebook message me or something like that, because we want to be able to think about what other venues you can. So if you go home and think of something, oh, I'm part of this organization and they do this in Young Park, and maybe we can have a booth or something like that. I'm open. The more visibility we get, the better it will be. We're almost at 3:30. I want to be cognizant of your time. Got another question? Okay.
Be able, Mr. Chavez, are we able to rally at the Social Security office as long as we stay on the sidewalks?
By Cruces, in the Bosque.
You know what, we could do it on.
Yeah, probably, as long as you're on a public sidewalk. You probably can't block people from getting in, but yeah.
Also, I was gonna mention, on MSNBC, I've been listening, I listen to it all the time. So there's a thing on Wednesday, I guess the Republicans are having a town hall. And their special guest is gonna be, who? But it's on, what is it, News Nation? I think it's channel 307. I don't really particularly care to listen to it because I know it's gonna be a bunch of BS. But I don't know how you guys feel.
Okay, well
just to listen to.
That's good. Okay, as we sort of wrap up, I would like to just ask, is this format, I mean, we're trying to experiment with a whole bunch of different formats. Is this good? Is the agenda what you're looking for? Do you want something different? Okay, I'm not looking for compliments. I'm here to serve you and to see what you guys want.
All good. All good.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure.
Could we sign up to make a comment on Facebook before the event, so you knew who was speaking and the budget time and all that stuff?
You mean like the agenda?
Yeah, can we sign up to make comments beforehand?
Oh.
So that everybody knows what's going on.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, so with that being said, unless there's anything super pressing, our next general meeting would be May 11th here from 2 to 3:30, 4 o'clock if you want to stay around and socialize. I really appreciate. Thank you, Israel, for coming out. Appreciate that. And everybody here. Thank you.
I'll come back anytime you guys want.
May 11th is Mother's Day, oy vey. So keep that in mind. Bring mom, there you go. Bring a mother.
That's right.